Welcome to Fluent Career English. Today we are going to practice a very interesting speaking topic that is often used in professional conversations and job interviews. Our topic today is how to talk about your biggest life lesson in English. This lesson is designed for A2, B1 English learners who want to improve their workplace communication and speak more confidently in professional situations. In many professional environments, people are asked questions that require storytelling and reflection. For example, during job interviews, networking conversations, or leadership discussions, someone might ask questions like these. What is the biggest lesson you have learned in life? What experience helped you grow the most? What challenge taught you something important? These questions are not only about your life. They help employers understand your character, your mindset, and how you handle challenges. In today's lesson, you will learn how to describe a life experience, explain what you learned from it, and connect that lesson to professional growth. You will practice storytelling, vocabulary building, conversation practice, and speaking exercises. When you see the word repeat, please say the sentence out loud so you can practice your speaking. Let's begin with a simple conversation. Sophia, have you ever learned an important life lesson from a difficult experience?
Yes, I believe many life lessons come from challenges.
That is very true.
Difficult experiences often teach us valuable skills and perspectives.
Excellent explanation. Now let's practice expressing that idea. One important life lesson I learned is the value of persistence. One important life lesson I learned is the value of persistence. Challenges can teach us how to grow and improve. Challenges can teach us how to grow and improve. Difficult situations often help us develop stronger skills. Difficult situations often help us develop stronger skills. Excellent speaking practice. Now let's learn a useful structure for telling a life lesson story. When explaining a life lesson, it helps to organize your story in 3 parts. First, describe the situation. Second, explain the challenge or experience. Third, explain the lesson you learned. Let's practice. Early in my career, I worked on a project that was very challenging. Early in my career, I worked on a project that was very challenging. At first, I struggled to manage all the tasks and responsibilities. At first, I struggled to manage all the tasks and responsibilities. However, this experience taught me the importance of planning and persistence. However, this experience taught me the importance of planning and persistence. Excellent speaking practice. Now let's listen to another conversation. Sophia, imagine someone asked you about a life lesson during a professional conversation. What might you say?
I might explain a challenge that helped me grow.
That is a great strategy.
People often learn important lessons from their mistakes.
Exactly. Let's practice expressing that idea. One of the biggest lessons I learned came from a challenging project. One of the biggest lessons I learned came from a challenging project. At first, the situation was difficult because I lacked experience. At first, the situation was difficult because I lacked experience. However, the experience helped me develop stronger problem-solving skills. However, the experience helped me develop stronger problem-solving skills. Excellent speaking practice. Now let's learn some useful vocabulary for describing life lessons. Lesson. A lesson is something important you learn from an experience. This experience taught me an important lesson about teamwork. This experience taught me an important lesson about teamwork. Challenge. A challenge is a difficult situation that requires effort to overcome. Facing challenges helps people develop stronger abilities. Facing challenges helps people develop stronger abilities. Growth. Growth means improvement and development. Personal growth often comes from difficult experiences. Personal growth often comes from difficult experiences. Excellent. Now let's practice another storytelling example. Sophia, imagine you experienced a difficult project early in your career. What lesson might you share?
I might explain how teamwork helps solve the problem.
That is a valuable lesson.
Collaboration often leads to better solutions.
Exactly. Let's practice expressing that idea. Early in my career, I worked on a challenging project with my team. Early in my career, I worked on a challenging project with my team. The project required strong communication and cooperation. The project required strong communication and cooperation. Through this experience, I learned the importance of teamwork. Through this experience, I learned the importance of teamwork. Excellent speaking practice. Now it is your turn to practice speaking. Think about an experience that taught you something important. You can start like this. One important life lesson I learned came from a challenging experience. One important life lesson I learned came from a challenging experience. The situation helped me understand the importance of persistence. The situation helped me understand the importance of persistence. Because of that experience, I approach challenges more confidently today. Because of that experience, I approach challenges more confidently today. Excellent. Now let's discuss a common mistake when telling life lesson stories. Sometimes people describe the situation but forget to explain the lesson. For example, someone might say this: I worked on a difficult project and it was stressful. This explanation describes the experience but does not explain the lesson. A stronger response includes reflection. I worked on a difficult project early in my career. I worked on a difficult project early in my career. However, the experience taught me the importance of organization and teamwork. However, the experience taught me the importance of organization and teamwork. Excellent speaking practice. Now let's practice a shadowing round. Listen carefully and repeat the sentences naturally. Life lessons often come from difficult experiences. Life lessons often come from difficult experiences.
Challenges can help people develop stronger skills. Challenges can help people develop stronger skills.
Reflecting on experiences helps professionals grow and improve. Reflecting on experiences helps professionals grow and improve.
Therefore, learning from challenges is important for personal development. Therefore, learning from challenges is important for personal development.
Excellent speaking practice. Now let's continue the conversation. Sophia, why do you think life lessons are important for professional growth?
Because life lessons help people understand their strengths and weaknesses.
That is correct.
Learning from experience helps professionals make better decisions.
Excellent explanation. Let's practice expressing that idea. Life lessons help people grow and improve their abilities. Life lessons help people grow and improve their abilities. Learning from experience builds confidence and resilience. Learning from experience builds confidence and resilience. Therefore, reflecting on challenges is important for personal development. Therefore, reflecting on challenges is important for personal development. Excellent. Let's continue practicing how to talk about your biggest life lesson in English. In this section, we will focus on telling clearer stories, explaining challenges, and connecting life lessons to professional growth. In many professional conversations, storytelling helps people explain their experiences in a meaningful way. When you describe a life lesson, it is helpful to explain the situation, describe the challenge, and then explain what you learned. Let's begin with a workplace conversation. Sophia, imagine a coworker asks you about an experience that helped you grow as a professional. What would you say?
I would describe a challenging experience and explain the lesson I learned from it.
That is an excellent strategy.
Sharing lessons from experience helps others understand how we grow.
Exactly. Let's practice expressing that idea. One of the most important lessons I learned came from a challenging project early in my career. One of the most important lessons I learned came from a challenging project early in my career. At that time, I had to manage several responsibilities at once. At that time, I had to manage several responsibilities at once. However, the experience taught me the importance of organization and communication. However, the experience taught me the importance of organization and communication. Excellent speaking practice. Now let's practice another storytelling situation. Sophia, imagine you faced a difficult situation at work that helped you develop confidence. What might you say?
I might explain how the challenge helped me improve my skills.
That is a strong storytelling approach.
Challenges often help people become more confident.
Exactly. Let's practice expressing that idea. Early in my career, I was responsible for leading a small project team. Early in my career, I was responsible for leading a small project team. At first, I felt nervous because it was a new responsibility. At first, I felt nervous because it was a new responsibility. However, the experience helped me develop confidence and leadership skills. However, the experience helped me develop confidence and leadership skills. Excellent speaking practice. Now let's practice another workplace scenario. Imagine you are talking with coworkers about personal growth. Sophia, how would you explain a lesson about persistence?
I would describe a time when I faced difficulty but continued trying.
That is an excellent lesson.
Persistence often leads to success.
Exactly. Let's practice expressing that response. One important life lesson I learned is the value of persistence. One important life lesson I learned is the value of persistence. I faced several challenges during an important project. I faced several challenges during an important project. However, continuing to work hard helped me achieve a positive result. However, continuing to work hard helped me achieve a positive result. Excellent speaking practice. Now let's learn a few additional words that are useful when talking about life lessons. Experience. Experience refers to events that help people learn and grow. This experience helped me develop stronger professional skills. This experience helped me develop stronger professional skills. Perspective. Perspective means a way of understanding a situation. Difficult situations can change our perspective and help us grow. Difficult situations can change our perspective and help us grow. Reflection. Reflection means thinking carefully about past experiences. Reflection helps people learn valuable lessons from challenges. Reflection helps people learn valuable lessons from challenges. Excellent. Now let's practice another conversation. Sophia, imagine a coworker asks you what experience helped you grow the most. What would you say?
I would describe a difficult project and explain what I learned.
That is a great storytelling approach.
Sharing lessons from experience helps others learn as well.
Exactly. Let's practice expressing that idea. One experience that helped me grow was managing a complex project. One experience that helped me grow was managing a complex project. The project required strong communication and careful planning. The project required strong communication and careful planning. Through this experience, I learned the importance of teamwork and organization. Through this experience, I learned the importance of teamwork and organization. Excellent speaking practice. Now it is your turn to practice speaking. Think about an experience that helped you grow as a person or professional. You can start like this. One of the biggest lessons I learned came from a challenging experience. One of the biggest lessons I learned came from a challenging experience. The situation taught me the importance of patience and persistence. The situation taught me the importance of patience and persistence. Because of that lesson, I approach challenges with greater confidence today. Because of that lesson, I approach challenges with greater confidence today. Excellent. Now let's discuss a common mistake when telling life lesson stories. Sometimes people focus too much on the problem and forget to explain the lesson. For example, someone might say this. I worked on a difficult project and it was very stressful. This explanation describes the situation but not the lesson. A stronger response includes reflection. I worked on a difficult project early in my career. I worked on a difficult project early in my career. However, the experience taught me how important teamwork and planning are. However, the experience taught me how important teamwork and planning are. Excellent speaking practice. Now let's practice another shadowing round. Listen carefully and repeat the sentences naturally. Life lessons often come from challenging experiences. Life lessons often come from challenging experiences.
Difficult situations can help people develop stronger skills. Difficult situations can help people develop stronger skills.
Reflection helps professionals learn from their experiences. Reflection helps professionals learn from their experiences.
Therefore, learning from challenges supports personal growth. Therefore, learning from challenges supports personal growth.
Excellent speaking practice. Now let's continue the conversation. Sophia, why do you think sharing life lessons is valuable in professional conversations?
Because it helps people understand how experiences shape our abilities.
That is correct.
Sharing lessons from experience can inspire others.
Excellent explanation. Let's practice expressing that idea. Sharing life lessons helps people learn from each other. Sharing life lessons helps people learn from each other. Experiences often teach valuable skills and perspectives. Experiences often teach valuable skills and perspectives. Therefore, storytelling can be a powerful way to communicate personal growth. Therefore, storytelling can be a powerful way to communicate personal growth. Excellent. In this final section, we will practice longer storytelling conversations and learn how to explain your biggest life lesson in a clear and meaningful way. In professional environments, People often share stories about challenges and lessons during interviews, leadership discussions, or team conversations. These stories help others understand how you think, how you solve problems, and how you grow from experience. Let's begin with another conversation. Sophia, imagine someone asked you this question during a professional discussion. What is the biggest life lesson you have learned? How would you answer?
I would describe an experience that changed the way I approach challenges.
That is a strong approach.
Experiences often teach lessons that help us grow.
Exactly. Let's practice expressing that idea. One of the biggest life lessons I learned is the importance of perseverance. One of the biggest life lessons I learned is the importance of perseverance. I once faced a challenging situation that required patience and determination. I once faced a challenging situation that required patience and determination. However, the experience helped me develop stronger problem-solving skills. However, the experience helped me develop stronger problem-solving skills. Excellent speaking practice. Now let's practice another storytelling example. Sophia, imagine you learned an important lesson about teamwork. What might you say?
I might describe a project where teamwork helped overcome a difficult situation.
That is an excellent lesson.
Working with others often leads to better solutions.
Exactly. Let's practice expressing that idea. One important lesson I learned is the value of teamwork. One important lesson I learned is the value of teamwork. During a challenging project, our team had to collaborate closely. During a challenging project, our team had to collaborate closely. Through that experience, I learned that cooperation leads to stronger results. Through that experience, I learned that cooperation leads to stronger results. Excellent speaking practice. Now let's discuss another workplace scenario. Sometimes people share life lessons during leadership conversations. Sophia, imagine you are mentoring a new coworker. What life lesson might you share?
I might share a lesson about learning from mistakes.
That is a very valuable lesson.
Mistakes often help people improve and grow.
Exactly. Let's practice expressing that response. One important lesson I learned is that mistakes are opportunities to learn. One important lesson I learned is that mistakes are opportunities to learn. Early in my career, I made a mistake during a project. Early in my career, I made a mistake during a project. However, that experience helped me improve my planning and communication skills. However, that experience helped me improve my planning and communication skills. Excellent speaking practice. Now let's practice another conversation. Sophia, imagine a coworker asks how challenges helped you grow professionally. What would you say?
I would explain how difficult experiences helped me develop stronger skills.
That is a clear and thoughtful answer.
Growth often comes from overcoming challenges.
Exactly. Let's practice expressing that idea. Challenges have helped me develop resilience and confidence. Challenges have helped me develop resilience and confidence. Difficult situations often teach valuable lessons. Difficult situations often teach valuable lessons. Because of these experiences, I approach problems more calmly and effectively today. Because of these experiences, I approach problems more calmly and effectively today. Excellent speaking practice. Now let's practice a final shadowing round. Listen carefully and repeat the sentences naturally. Life lessons often come from challenging experiences. Life lessons often come from challenging experiences.
Difficult situations can teach valuable skills and perspectives. Difficult situations can teach valuable skills and perspectives.
Reflecting on experiences helps professionals grow and improve. Reflecting on experiences helps professionals grow and improve.
Therefore, learning from challenges supports long-term success. Therefore, learning from challenges supports long-term success.
Excellent speaking practice. Now let's have one final conversation. Sophia, why do you think reflecting on life lessons is important?
Because reflection helps people understand how experiences shape their growth.
That is correct.
When people reflect on their experiences, they can learn valuable insights.
Excellent explanation. Let's practice expressing that idea. Reflecting on experiences helps people understand their personal growth. Reflecting on experiences helps people understand their personal growth. Life lessons often guide future decisions and actions. Life lessons often guide future decisions and actions. Therefore, learning from experience is important for professional development. Therefore, learning from experience is important for professional development. Excellent. Now it is time for the final speaking challenge. Imagine someone asks you this question during a professional conversation. What is the biggest life lesson you have learned? Listen to this example answer. One of the biggest life lessons I learned is the importance of persistence. One of the biggest life lessons I learned is the importance of persistence. Early in my career, I faced a difficult project that required patience and effort. Early in my career, I faced a difficult project that required patience and effort. However, that experience helped me develop stronger problem-solving skills and confidence. However, that experience helped me develop stronger problem-solving skills and confidence. Now it is your turn. Think about a life lesson that helped you grow as a person or professional. Describe the situation, explain the challenge, and share the lesson you learned. Take a moment and say your answer out loud. Excellent work. Today you practiced how to describe life experiences, explain personal growth, and share meaningful life lessons in English. These storytelling skills are extremely valuable in interviews, leadership discussions, and professional communication. The more you practice these conversations, the more confident you will become when speaking English in real-world situations. Thank you for learning with us on Fluent Career English. Keep practicing, keep improving, and keep building your confidence in English for your career.